Welcome to the Living Centred podcast, a podcast all about learning together how to live lives which are centred on Jesus. Everyone lives centred on something. Our goal is to learn together how every area of our lives, everything about who we are and how we live, can be increasingly oriented around Jesus and transformed by Jesus. He invites us to a rich and satisfying life, where the good news that he truly is enough changes everything about how we relate to God, ourselves, and the world. In each episode, a different person shares about what it's looking like for them to seek to centre their life on Jesus right now. As we hear their stories, we get to learn together and to encourage one another in what it means for Jesus to be at the centre of our lives. This is a journey we are all invited to, and a conversation we all get to be a part of. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, my name's Adrian, and it is so good to welcome you to this week's episode of the Living Centred podcast. And it's my privilege today to introduce Julez, who's going to be sharing. Julez, it is good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Adrian.
Ah, good. To ease you in then, as I do for each person each week, can you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what your life looks like at this point in time?
I certainly can. This is definitely the easiest of the questions.
It is indeed.
I am the resident expert. So, hi, I am Julez. I am a daughter of Christ.
Yeah.
I am a wife to the ever-patient Rich Beaupit.
Amazing.
I am mother to the ever-hungry Zach Beaupit. Honestly, insatiable appetite. It's impressive. I'm a daughter, a sister, a cousin, an aunt, a friend to many. I'm a board game geek.
Amazing.
I am a Harry Potter nerd.
Wow.
I'm a Disney princess and an amateur baker.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What a description. And I need to watch that I don't go off on the Disney princess route. I'm not going to do that. Rather, we're going to jump then to the big question, which is, what does living centred on Jesus look like for you right now?
Thanks. So I've obviously been mulling over this question. I listen to this podcast every week. And so every time you ask someone else the question, it starts you thinking a little bit about how would I answer that question. And bear with me on this. Mm-hmm. My initial answer is, I don't feel like I am. And I share that not to be self-deprecating, but just because I think there's probably a lot of you listening who can relate to the same thing. And I think just be encouraged that we're all in the same boat, really. I don't think there's many people who walk around feel like I am living a Christ-centered life. There are some, and they are amazing people. But I know for myself, I have extremely high standards for myself. So for me, living centered on Christ looks like I wake up and the first thing I think about is Jesus. Anything that happens throughout the day, my first thought is, let's take this to Jesus. God's my first and my last resort in every situation. I'm in continuous conversation with him all day long. I go to sleep and the last thing I think about is Jesus. That for me is what my brain defines a Christ-centered life as. And I don't think it will surprise anyone to know that that's not really a very true definition of my life. And so I therefore instantly feel like I must not be living a Christ-centered life.
Wow.
And so actually for me, a lot of what living centered looks like is a lot of unlearning at the moment. Lies that I don't know if I've been told them by other people or if I've just made them up myself, that are so ingrained in my psyche that I don't even realise they're lies. And it takes conversations with other people to really bring that to the front. So there was an example a few months ago in my small group where I can't remember what I was sharing, but I was sharing something. A friend in small group said, well, could we help you with that? And my initial reaction was, no, because if I can't manage this on my own, if I need other people to help me with it, then I'm not managing, which to me made perfect sense.
I can see that,
There was just this moment in small group where everyone was like, no. And obviously at church, we talk about community a lot. We're taught to do life in community with others. So that's one example of where I'm having to do quite a bit of unlearning actually, and teach myself it's okay to need help. Not that I wouldn't ever go to help, but that wouldn't feel like the Christ-centered way to approach it. For me at the moment, living centered, as I said, it looks like a season of unlearning a lot of stuff. I put down here, choosing to do life with people who will point me back to Jesus. I imagine there's probably other people that can relate to this. If you have a problem, you kind of pick and choose who to take the problem to based on who you think is going to give you the advice that you want to be given.
Yeah.
On how to deal with it. And so for me, it's being intentional about making sure actually if I've got a problem, I'm sharing it with those people in my life who I know are going to say, right, let's stop and pray about that, or I'll pray for you for that. And I've been blessed with, I'm kind of dipping into the next question here a little bit, but I've been blessed with some really amazing people in my life. So I've got two sisters. I've got two sisters and a brother. I've got two sisters who walk really closely with Jesus.
Wow.
As three sisters, we're very close together. We've got a sisters WhatsApp group. We'll share stuff in there. We'll pray for each other. And my sisters are really good at asking me, have you prayed about that?
Yeah.
It's choosing those people and making sure that I'm keeping them in my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Another one, which won't surprise you, is just trying to focus a bit more on his grace, which unsurprisingly is kind of the antidote to my the thing that I was sharing earlier about my kind of like high expectations for myself. I think the other thing is the reality of the season that I'm in at the moment. I am currently nearly 20 weeks pregnant. I am still being sick most days.
It's not nice.
It's
not nice.
It's really taken a toll. It means actually over the last kind of 3 months, I've barely made it into work. I was spending a lot of time in bed, just resting and sleeping and trying to gain the energy that I need to grow this little baby, which I feel very, very blessed to have. But that doesn't take away the sickness. So that's just kind of messed with my routines. Like I don't have a morning routine. My husband's amazing. He gets up with Zach every morning so that I could get that lie in and get that rest that I need. But it has just thrown a lot of kind of structures out of whack for the time being. And so it's just trying to have, again, that grace for myself that it's okay if life looks a little bit different in this moment.
It's really good, Jules. Really good. As always, I just love it. As soon as someone's in, let me just tell you the truth. This is reality. Let's not dress it up. I'm in. I'm like, yep, that's my happy place. I don't want kind of presented what people think everyone wants to hear. Everyone just wants to hear reality.
Yeah.
And I just love that. I love just your reality of just saying, what I'm discovering in what it means for me to be living centered on Jesus at the moment is unlearning some things.
Yeah.
Of realizing that I can put this definition around what I think it should look like that actually no one's going to be able to live in. And therefore I'm unlearning of what does it look like. And as you said, like the antidote to that is ultimately is grace.
It is.
It's like, I need to live in God's unconditional love and favor towards me.
Yeah.
And just, allow that to penetrate. And what I love then is you saying, and what I'm learning is that doesn't mean I've got to just do it by myself, but I've got to do it with others.
Yeah.
And that means I've got to allow others in. I've got to be purposeful in asking people to be around me who I know are going to point me to Jesus and his love and acceptance of me. Or to also know that they're going to be ones, I guess, who are at this season of life that you're in, saying, hey, just be gracious. Yeah. As well as you're trying to do that more yourself, saying, let's just be realistic of how life is looking at the moment. Yeah. It's really good. Really, really helpful.
I'm one of those lucky people. I grew up in a Christian home. There's never been a day in my life where I wouldn't have called myself a Christian. But it means for me, there's a lot of very key Christian concepts that I've actually yet to get my head around because they're so almost ingrained in my life. Like I've talked about grace and the love of God since day one. That I've never questioned it. But it means I've never really delved into it. And it's so easy to just say, God's got grace. And then move on, rather than delving into what that means for me, what that means for those around me.
Oh, so good. It's so good because it's at that point where you suddenly say, so what? It's like where the transformation starts to happen, where freedom can be found, where you suddenly realize, Jesus, when you said life in full, I think this is what you're kind of meaning. But it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to explore. It's hard to let go. I guess then, to kind of, you've already started to answer this a bit, but just push a bit more into that. Like, what is helping you as you seek to do this?
I feel like it's quite a common theme across the podcast that you do. Rhythms are really helpful, which is why when you have, as I've got, like a strange season upon you, it messes with your rhythms. It does shake you up a little bit. Yeah. But so rhythms like, coming to church on a Sunday. Yeah. Quite often I'm not in the meeting. I'm somewhere chasing my son around the building. He's usually in the toilets at the back washing his hands. That's one of his favourite activities.
Amazing.
But just coming here every week, hearing the worship, being part of what's going on, connecting back in with friends here in the church. On a similar vein, the podcast as well. So I've said I'm an avid listener.
Yeah.
I'm one of those listening friends.
Oh man, I love all my listening friends.
Yes. That's all of you. If you're listening, you're our friend.
You're indeed.
My small group, so me and my husband with another couple at church, we run a small group. So that meets every Wednesday. So that's a really good midweek connection point in again. We'll do a variety of different things with our small group. Sometimes we'll look at a separate topic or series. Sometimes we'll just discuss what happened on Sunday. And sometimes we'll do a living-centred week, a small group, which is just essentially where we do a very similar thing to this podcast, but just check in on each other as a group. Finding that a really helpful rhythm. Obviously, my husband, so my husband works here for Oasis. He obviously loves Jesus, so he will keep me focused on Jesus as well. I like to think I do the same.
I'm sure you do, Jules. I'm sure you really do.
Yeah, so my son Zach's is Acts 2 and is an absolute bundle of joy and chaos. I find even just doing life with Zach can sometimes point me back to Jesus. There's a few examples. So at the moment, he's going through a very cute phase of wanting to hold our hand to go to sleep, which is adorable on paper. The reality of that is sitting on his bedroom floor with your hands stuck between two cot bars.
Yeah, I remember.
In the dark, so you can't see whether he's awake or asleep yet. Just sat there going, is he asleep enough for me to, can I extract my hand? When I do that with Zach, I've been trying recently to use that time to pray for him.
Amazing.
And that doesn't need to look like a long, convoluted prayer. Often it's just me saying, Lord, this is my son. Look after him. But that's all he needs. Instead of just sitting on the floor bemoaning my situation, wishing I was somewhere else, why not use that time to speak to God? And I mentioned already my sisters. They've been a great support to me, always have been, always will be. And also I've got a couple of friends in this church. We've formed a little prayer triplet, so we meet together once a week as well when our diaries allow. We are mercilessly teased by our husbands for our book club in inverted commas. They do not approve of the speed at which we get through the book, but we have a great time catching up, praying for each other and lifting our situations up to God. So take that, husbands. Unfortunately, my husband's editing the podcast, so we'll see how much of this makes it into the final cut.
I'm sure it will now. What I find fascinating is actually in all of it, it involves others.
Yeah.
That's what I realised as you went through it and said, oh yeah, it's the weekly rhythms, which is about connection in the bigger of the Sunday gathering and the smaller through small group.
Yeah.
It's through individuals, it's through Rich, it's through Zach, it's through your sisters. It's then in this other smaller group of friends where you gather and just support one another, love one another, pray for one another, slowly read through books. It's just really good. And just realizing that actually that is the obvious outworking of where you said, I'm trying to unlearn some things. And the example you gave was actually the thing I need to unlearn is I'm not going to do this by myself.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, the best way for you to be encouraged to live more centered with Jesus is learning to do it with others.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's really beautiful.
I know, I'm very aware I have got the attention span of a gnat. It is... It is amazing how quickly I could go from sitting down to pray to I've written a shopping list. I've scripted out in my head a reply to that WhatsApp message that I've not replied to for sometimes over 3 months, Adrian.
Wow.
It's And so left to my own devices, if I was trying to do all of this on my own, I mean, I'd have a lot of shopping lists, but I don't know how much time I would have actually spent with God. So people are crucial for just keeping me accountable, keeping me focused. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, it's really good. I guess then out of this, like, what are you discovering about who God is as Father, Son, and Spirit at the moment?
Some of it I've probably already touched on, I think, just in terms of kind of like God and his grace. I've actually changed one of your sayings.
Totally fine.
Jesus is enough for me.
Nice.
I think has been a really important one I've been really trying to learn recently. There was a Sunday a few weeks ago where you were preaching and you got us to chat in pairs kind of around a few different topics and what we wanted to focus on this year, I think it was. And you just talked about the Jesus is enough, full stop. And it just hit me in that moment that I know that's true. But in that moment, God said, and it's also true for you.
Wow.
And I went, oh. So that's been quite a big one. And I am not there yet.
No, sure.
That's very much a journey that I am on. The grace that I give to everyone else, trying to work out how to accept it for myself, which is some very easy words to say. Much harder words, I think, to put into practice.
Yeah.
But so I'm sorry to riff on a theme, but I've changed it up.
I think it's, as you said, I thought, that's so good. And I wonder, like, if you're listening, maybe you're just suddenly thinking, I need to hear that. I can often be quick to point this out to others. And maybe in this moment, I just need to remind myself and receive again that Jesus is enough for me. Yeah, I don't mind that riff, Tim.
Excellent.
That's very good.
Phew, breathe a sigh of relief.
Which brings us sadly to the final question, like how are you changing? If we were to have met Julez 3, 6, 12 months ago, how would Julez then look different to Julez today?
Again, the honest answer is, when I was thinking about this, I've barely written anything down in my notes for this section because I don't feel like I would look much different. I think that's when it's small incremental changes, it's quite hard to see them in yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the things that I hope would look different, I'd like to think I'm more confident in who God has made me to be rather than striving for someone else. I think comparison is a big theme for me of something I'm desperately trying to get out of my life. And I like to think I'm improving on that. And also just being easier on myself, which is very much a work in progress. But again, coming back to that grace, Jesus is enough for me. For me, it's little things like, yesterday I messaged your wife and said, I'm praying for you. And what happened in that moment was I was thinking about Lucy and remembering something she'd shared with me on Sunday. And I thought, God, I want to lift that up to you. So I messaged Lucy and said, I'm praying for you. And that was the extent of it. Previous me would have said, well, you haven't really prayed about it, have you? Because you didn't sit down and read the Bible for 5 minutes and say a long, eloquent prayer about it. And if I get a message from someone saying, I'm praying for you, I think I quite often picture in a very nice way that they've sat down together and that they've spent some time really praying for my situation. And so when I don't do that, I feel like, well, am I just saying it to look good? But I have lifted that situation up to God in prayer. So it's situations like that where I'm just trying to have a bit more grace for myself and just say, that was enough. God takes our little and he does huge amounts with it.
Yeah, that's amazing, Julez. And I think it, actually, even you saying, I'm not sure. And then as you were speaking, I thought, no, I think you can see it. You can see that you're changing.
Yeah.
And I think there's some things that where it's like just being so much part of us. I think every human being, like I know I've struggled with comparison, competition, and it can still sometimes be there. And it's a continual transformation. Yeah, I am freer than I was.
Yeah.
But I know there's still more.
Yeah.
I know there's still more.
Yeah.
And I think it's that. And I think that's the excitement in hearing kind of you share is like, I know I'm changing, but I know there's more.
Yeah.
Which I think is just good news.
Yeah.
And in it can see how it kind of relates from where we began of, I don't want to live in some ideal that I continuously beat myself up about.
Yeah.
Rather, I want to live in a place where I just know that Jesus, you're enough for me.
Yeah.
That I just live in your grace. How can you not? Like, how can I not? But at this point say, man, heart is well and truly full. It just does me good hearing the stories each week of just seeing the way in which Jesus is meeting with people and transforming them. Oh, it's just so good. And this has done me the world of good again. So thank you.
Me too. Thank you.
Heart-filled. Yeah, thank you for sharing the reality of who you are and what it looks like to just seek to live more centered on Jesus, which is what we're all trying to do. I think from all you shared, I think the thing I'm going to contemplate over the coming week is what's the thing I need to unlearn at the moment? What's the stuff that I'm just doing because I've always done it and I need to unlearn it a bit? Or maybe I need to change what I'm doing a bit. So that's the thing I'm going to contemplate over this coming week. How about you, my listening friends? Out of the wonder and breadth of everything Julez has shared of herself, also what she's doing, what are you going to contemplate over this coming week? Lastly, I just want to thank you each for listening, and I want to pray for each of us. I pray we would know more of the wonder of living centered on Jesus this coming week. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Living Centered podcast. New episodes are released every Monday, and if you enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe on your chosen podcast provider to receive them direct each week. Living Centered is produced by the team at Oasis Church in Birmingham, UK, and you can find out more and get in touch with the team via theoasischurch.com.